Let me pose a hypothetical to you guys to kind of conceptualize how far along we are in this ICM roadmap. So, say Elon Musk decides that he wants to IPO SpaceX, and Nikita Beer is like, "Hey, I'm an advisor to Solana. You should do it on Solana." And so he wants to take SpaceX stock, and assume the SEC is like chill with this. There's no regulatory barrier here. How close are we to being in a world where you could, IPO SpaceX on Solana and then have the stock trade and do all these things?
Okay, so I'm going to give you like the non-technical answer, and then Max can give you the technical answer, which is SpaceX is probably more valuable than Ethereum today in market cap. So this is really a Rorschach test of if you think economic security is a meme or if it's real. And I would view success for any execution layer as being able to facilitate more value transaction and more asset issuance than the underlying asset itself is worth. There are a lot of people who fundamentally disagree with me on this, but I think it's a failure case for this technology if the market cap of the L1 must be more than the market cap of the things issued on top of it.
Yeah, I would say, just to answer the question directly, some context, we're like the day after TradFi just incinerated $3.2 billion on the Figma IPO because they set the price way, way, way too low, like a third of what it actually should have been.
Like a month after they did the same thing to Circle.
Right. And they're going to do it again for 30 more startups this cycle because it's kind of frothy and they don't know what they're doing. It's some guy in his cubicle with his spreadsheet, and he like types a few numbers in and multiplies 3 random numbers together and gets a valuation. That's how this thing works for some unknown reason. And then they like go on CNBC and they say, "Oh, we're 30x oversubscribed." It's like, you ask anybody in like the first year of their econ course whether being 30x more demand than supply is a good outcome for the market. They will tell you absolutely not. So one thing is like, we could just hold an auction, and you can do that today. I guess like Gavel, which is a product that Ellipsis Labs has built, which was originally for fair launching meme coins, but is built for this exact application, which is we have an asset which we are listing and it's going to enter price discovery. How do we do that in such a way that it's not the first to get there, but it's the person who wants to pay the most that gets the asset? And we have price discovery with minimal $3.2 billion incineration events where you pay your friends and family who got into the round. And if you don't have, another shout out for permissionlessness, if you don't have a connect at Goldman Sachs or whoever did like the IPO for Figma, you're not getting into that private round at a third of the valuation of what the thing should have been priced at. So I think in some ways for the IPO like period, we have the technology already. It could be made even better and faster price discovery on new assets with multi-leader because you can hold the auction faster. But then the question is like, after it starts trading, can we handle the price discovery throughout the whole day where it's super volatile? Can we handle it throughout the year? I would say for something like SpaceX, it might be really a lot of scale to handle. But with the pump ICO, we did 600 mil of capital raise for that in 12 minutes and didn't go down even though the exchanges went down. So I think we're kind of ready right now for the initial IPOs. But the thing that would be pretty annoying is, what happened with Hype is now like they took a lot of the pump volume, even though pump launched on Solana and we handled it really well. They took a lot of the volume for themselves because they were able to offer in some ways a better product for perpetual futures on top of pump. And so then we don't want that to happen. So I think that's kind of where this roadmap is going, is how do we let apps on Solana take the Hype perp volume and put it on Solana. And then when somebody launches an asset like SpaceX on Solana, it doesn't end up being a huge windfall for Hyperliquid.
Mm-hmm. And it's kind of a silly, insane hypothetical to ask about, but I do because, a lot of Solana markets are still centered around trading meme coins. Like that's kind of the dominant use case still today. And so I think it's interesting to ask, like when you talk about internet capital markets, how does like real finance that pertains to products in the real world that are not meme coins, like actually coming on chain, what does that look like? I think is a really interesting question, and will be an interesting one to watch play out over the next couple of years. Max, you mentioned the Figma IPO. We're also a day after the SEC announced Project Crypto, where Atkins, stood up and said, we want to bring financial markets on chain, which was remarkable to hear, and a very big deal. And so, it's a little silly to talk about SpaceX IPOing on chain, but it might not look silly in a couple of years based on just what the mood is in Washington right now, especially.
Yeah, I think as soon as one does it, it's going to be like, you're going to see one does it and it goes successful and nothing problematic happens. Then it's just going to be a cascade of them, because what is kind of holding it back is this, nobody got fired because they incinerated $3.2 billion of Figma assets that should have gone to the Figma team and Figma investors during this IPO process, but they should have, right? And so you can get fired if you do a direct listing and it doesn't go well. And as soon as somebody realizes that, first of all, you need to fire the person at Figma who made the decision to do this IPO, you probably should fire the analysts who priced it so wrong. Like, those people should be fired. But also, like, we should reward people who don't do that and make the right decision. And the first person who does it, they're going to kind of open the floodgates, and it's going to be acceptable to do for every other company after that.
The ICM roadmap is getting people at Figma fired. Well put. Max, Austin, I think I'm going to end it there.